am speaking to you from Brooklyn, location situated upon the unceded seas territory of the Lenape and Canarsie peoples, and benefited from the economies of slavery and the labors of African-descended captives. We owe our existence and vitality to generations from around the world who were brought here against their will, drawn here to escape persecution, and some that have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. We pay respect to their communities, past and present. This acknowledgement asks us each to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us here together today. AMC is dedicated to an environment in which all individuals are treated with respect and dignity at our programs. Each individual has the right to be in a professional atmosphere that prohibits discriminatory practices, including harassment. Our full code of conduct policy for today's program and all our programs, events, and overall work, as well as the outlets to make a direct or anonymous report of a violation, has been posted in our chat feature. We are grateful to our attendees for making space in their schedule to join us. I also want to acknowledge and welcome all our members here today and express our gratitude to them for being part of our community. We give thanks to our speakers for sharing their experiences and knowledge in today's candid and open forum. Please also be sure to check out our YouTube channel to see recordings of past programs as well. Thank you again for joining us. And now to begin.
Good evening in New York and good early morning here in Manila. It is with pride to share with our colleagues in the museum and the art circle this museum initiative, which was born out of our advocacy to promote our indigenous culture in the Philippines, which is very rich and is continuously developing amidst the modernization and this crisis like the pandemic. So we thank the AAMC for this opportunity to present and promote the sustainability of the indigenous art and culture, particularly of the Tbolis in the southern part of the Philippines. And later on, we would welcome comments, suggestions, and inquiries of this particular museum project. So together with me to present to you this advocacy are two of my associates in coming up with this exhibition that will not only present the arts of the Tbolis, but to accompany them as well, especially during this time of the crisis. And to be with us in the discussion are two of my colleagues in the museum, Ms. Evangeline Lopez Leonardo. She's an exhibition and archive researcher of San Beda Alabang Museum and Archives. She also conducts phenomenological studies and the research about indigenous cultures, local practices, history and lineage, art, music, movements, natural wellness and healing practices in the Philippines. And also with us is Ms. Rosani Recreo Sarile. She's a former subcommittee member of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts here in the Philippines. And she's also a faculty at De La Salle University in Dasmariñas in the province of Cavite, southern of Manila. And she currently is the president of Cavite Association of Historical Sites and Museums and former administrative officer of the Museo de la Salle. Okay, so as we start our presentation about this particular project, let me share our screen. Okay. So this particular activity of the museum is actually to promote our indigenous culture. And as you know, our country, the Philippines, is very rich of its cultural past. It's the evidence can be found in the gold artistry and the belief in the afterlife even before Christianity was introduced. And here in this image, you can see the Boxer Codex. It's known as the Manila manuscript. It's a Spanish manuscript written in 1590, which contains illustrations of ethnic groups in the Philippines. And it only shows how we are, how our civilization is, even before the Spaniards came to colonize us. So we're wearing gold everyday life, and we have all these crafts, artistry. See how intricate our gold collections are. We call it the gold of our ancestors, and we already have that structural belief of the afterlife, the belief in the divine. So all the creative energy are coming from the divine spirit, divine essence within us. And so as a museum curator, it is our responsibility as an educational institution as well. Later on, I will introduce to you our museum to promote our indigenous culture to the next generation of Filipinos, not only to the Filipinos, to instill pride among our people, but also to introduce this to the international scene. And so our objective as a museum is to present the finest traditional artists of our nation. So we adopt programs that ensure the transfer of the skills to the next generation. And we also undertake measures to promote genuine appreciation and to instill pride among our people about the genius of our indigenous artists. You know, we are very proud of our indigenous artists with all the wisdom that they possessed. And so we have this regular exhibition in our museum, and it presents usually every year an indigenous community or indigenous group. So this is our museum. It's a very small museum, actually. It's called the San Beda College Alabang Museum. It is located in Muntinlupa City, that's southern part of Metro Manila. And this is run by the institution is run by the Benedictine Fathers who came from Spain in 1895. And because of its rich contribution to Philippine history, our museum was established in 2007. So as the center of the arts, we conduct programs and activities that will promote artistic development among the members of our academe and also of the public. And so this is also, aside from being an educational museum, this is also historical and art museum. So we present the history of the coming of the Spanish Benedictine monks from Spain to establish a Catholic school. It contains archival photos and narratives, as well as pertinent artifacts and art collection, such as paintings and sculptures. So the galleries also feature thematic changing exhibitions that aim to provide a venue to discover and appreciate the vibrant arts, cultures, and traditions that form basically the cultural mosaic of the Philippines. So you can see here that during the normal times and when we had students face-to-face classes in Manila, unfortunately, until now, we are locked down. We don't have face-to-face classes, but you can just see how much we miss the students. They're always in the museum. It's a very interactive one. And even though we are an academic museum, a very small museum, some prominent people, dignitaries also visit us. And here you can see here a picture of our current vice president, President Lenny Robredo, who actually visited us as we feature some of the artists from her hometown in Bicol. So the government is also very much supportive of the arts and culture, particularly the Office of the Vice President of the Philippines. And so we have traveling exhibits also mounted by our museum and are brought to different schools. So we have this some sort of an arrangement with other institutions as part of our educational advocacy and partnership to promote Philippine arts. So the outreach program we also have invite underprivileged Filipino children and youth from various local municipalities in Metro Manila for some games, museum tours, storytelling, and art workshop. So we have a lot of activities going on in the museum. And as you know, this month is really very timely because we are celebrating, the Philippines is celebrating our Indigenous Peoples Month. And our Indigenous history has not always been lively told in our country. You know, Spanish and American colonial narratives are more emphasized in schools, and only now that we became aware and proud of our pre-colonial culture. So we are also reinventing our pre-colonial ancient Filipino script. So that's part of our advocacy in the museum, which are preserved by our indigenous communities. So the reason why this program was initiated by our museum, and it started with our immersion that we had right before the onslaught of the pandemic in the Philippines. So we are proud to say that our indigenous communities are rich in arts and culture. They are they're actually the true and pure Filipinos. They draw their wisdom from the divine and are great stewards of our natural environment, which the Philippines has been blessed with so much. No? We're very rich with natural resources. And that's why we're very proud of them. No, actually, as a speakers, we might have been our blood has been mixed with Spanish or American blood, but you know, our indigenous Filipino communities, they are very pure. They're the real Filipinos, actually, and that's why we would like to present them to you. So it all started with an immersion. This particular program of the museum started with an immersion, and Rosani will be the one to discuss with us how this came to be. So, Rosani?
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. Thank you again, AMC, for giving us the opportunity to share with you our experiences when we visited the Tboli cultural communities in Lake Cebu, South Cotabato, Mindanao, the southern part of the Philippines. Before I start, I would like to inform everyone that I am in the province now, and you will hear in my background the crowing of the roosters in my neighborhood. Welcome to the Philippines. So good morning, good evening, mabuhay. Our visit to the Tboli cultural communities was conceptualized in November 2019 in our PhD in Applied Cosmic Anthropology class, Accompanying People's Movement 2 under our professor, Felipe de Leon Jr. We were 16 students who went to Lake Cebu, South Cotabato for an immersion to the Tboli cultural communities. Through our professor, we chose the Tboli cultural community because of their tinala cloth, the dream weavers, chanting, dance, and ancestral houses or domain. We would like to explore the artistry and creativity of their culture and arts that bind them as a resilient people in their community. More than being a beautiful tourist destination in Mindanao, Lake Cebu serves a greater purpose because it is one of the Philippines' most important watersheds and a major provider of irrigation to the provinces of Sultan Kudarat and South Cotabato. It was in March 2020, just before the community quarantine due to the COVID-19 pandemic in the Philippines, that the dynamic experience ignited us to realize the richness of the Tboli's authentic culture, arts, and traditions. We all felt the same feeling of admiration and were so fascinated by knowing the history and the way of living of the Tboli indigenous people. The travel time by plane from Manila to General Santos Airport is approximately 1 hour and 25 minutes. And then from the airport, a land travel for at least 3 to 4 hours. And it was not an easy trip though, winding roads, sometimes rough and steep, but it was well worth it when we arrived in the community. And Miss Linda Orasman, we were together with her Gono Subong people and Honorable Mayor in the photos that you're seeing now, Mayor Floro S. Gandam, welcomed us with chanting, dancing, and served their local food, fruits, and drinks in their spacious tribal hut called Gono Cebu, or the House of Gatherings, which is built with nipa palm, bamboo, and hardwood. It was a memorable experience with the Tbolis, and we acquired so much information regarding their communities, both tangible and intangible materials, and of course, their way of living. and how they are trying their best to preserve their culture and tradition, which is one of the authentic Filipino cultures in the southern part of the Philippines. Maybe for the tourists who go and visit South Cotabato, they consider Tboli indigenous cultural communities as part of the travel package only. But our stay with them made us realize that Tboli culture is very important aspect in the realization of us being Filipino or as Filipinos. We were so inspired to accompany and to assist them in their hope to preserve the rich culture and tradition like tinalak weaving, the dream weavers, chanting, dance, and ancestral domain. We all know how the continuing COVID-19 pandemic has challenged museums around the world. The museums are trying to work hard in keeping strong in this difficult situation these days. Many museums and galleries have closed down while many have started to think and plan to continue giving services using online platforms and digital exhibitions as well as virtual tours. We're so uncertain of the situation nowadays, and we do not know when and how this pandemic will end. Without any preparation, museums and galleries were forced to shut down and caught unaware of what will happen next. But every museum is trying its best to respond to the rapidly changing situation. During our stay and became familiar with their needs, we planned and envisioned as a group to discuss ways on how we can support the Tboli communities, specifically in the promotion and preservation of their rich culture and traditions. The objectives of our immersion are as follows: to celebrate the tribe's unique and creative textile craftsmanship and artistic expression in music, chant, and dance. The tinalak has three colors, black, red, and white, and it is a cultural symbol accompanied by their prayers through chanting and dance, which connect us to their indigenous practices, family traditions, and their ancestors. We also want to instill a sense of pride among the Tboli indigenous people of their shared cultural values and their strong authentic culture and arts. We have to let them know the value of their traditions as an authentic Filipino culture and continue to have that sense of pride to their works. We would like also to foster strong connection and friendship between the Tboli cultural communities and the Asian Social Institute, our school, represented by the students and the faculty who are taking PhD in Applied Cosmic Anthropology program. Together with the other students taking ACA program, we would like to invite more museums to support the tinalak weaving of the Tbolis and appreciate their colorful way of life. We experience such joy, thankfulness, and learnings through our connection and interaction with the Tbolis. The feeling of wanting to support them and connect with them through our friendships started since the day we met them and until now. The friendship is growing and well appreciated. Moreover, since I have the passion for photography and video, I thought that one of the plans to support them with regard to preservation of culture and tradition is to document their way of life in the community using audio, video materials that can be uploaded online, and also the possibilities to come up with virtual tour. We would like to share some important aspects of the Tboli based on our observation and to assist them in preserving their traditional art through the assistance of San Beda Alabang Museum. Now, based on, during our meeting, based on the SWOT analysis, we came on the following plans supposedly before the pandemic. So we plan to have financial aspects since this is their priority. So we call it Alay, a love gift offering, where each student will share 1,000 pesos or $20 per month for 2 consecutive months. And this money will be given to them as initial capital to buy the materials in preparation for the exhibit. We also would like to include the tinalak design in the academic gown of the graduates of our PhD in Applied Cosmic program of the Asian Social Institute. Also to explore new and unique selling avenues for their products on various social media platforms by creating websites. We all know the power of technology, and since they have difficulty in accessing social media, we would like to assist them in marketing, positioning, and distribution of their products to sustain their production. Also, it's also our goal to include the lessons in the lessons of senior high school curriculum, the Tboli culture, society, and economy. Also, for my students in college to conduct research and to record tangible and intangible social or sociocultural aspects of the Tboli. And since I am in the film or in the video production, I would like to produce audiovisual materials to promote their colorful arts through their authentic attire, accessories, and ancestral houses. Later on, we will be going to give you a glimpse of the Tboli on video. So the pandemic won't stop the Tboli communities as well as San Beda Alabang Museum to continue to work hand in hand for the purpose of preserving their cultural living and let the other nations recognize the world-class and colorful materials, music, chants, and dance of the Tboli cultural community. So I guess that's all, Joseph. So I think I've given you a quick background of how we explore possibilities when we visit or when we had our immersion in Lake Cebu, South Cotabato. Thank you so much.
Yeah, actually, that's a very opening and grounding experience that we have when we went to Lake Cebu. No, it really changed a lot of things in our mind
Yes.
about our Tboli brothers and sisters, right?
Yes, and we never expected that we would see the colorful and awesome cultural communities, and of course the tinalak that they have.
Yeah, we could have stayed there during the lockdown, but
I'm sure.
well, yeah. So, but we were able to come back to Manila just a few days before the whole of the country was on lockdown.
It was 2 days before the lockdown. It was 2 days before the lockdown. So, we missed the chance of staying there.
Yeah. So, and yeah, so here is Vanch to give us a more concrete profile about the Tbolis and all the things that we saw there that we might include in the exhibition. Okay, Vanch, so.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. So just to amplify a little bit of what we have taken up so far and presented to you, for a brief profile, the Tboli is a landlocked municipality in the coastal province of South Cotabato. The municipality has a land area of 895.83 square kilometers or 345.88 square miles, which constitute 23.61% of the total area of the province. Its population is determined in the 2020 census was 101,049 individuals. So this represented as well 10.36 of the total population of the province, or 2.6%. Also, as determined, by the way, of the 2020 census, the total population was 101,049, representing 10.36% of the total population, or 2.6% of the overall population of the region. And based on these figures, the population density is computed as 113 inhabitants per square kilometer, or 292 inhabitants per square mile. The Tboli municipality has 25 barangays, and the annual regular revenue of the Tboli for the fiscal year of 2016, which is the latest of the census, was 258,752,205. or that's equivalent to $5,096,207 US dollars. The household population of Tboli in 2016 was 91,453, broken down into 21,441 households, or an average of 427 members per household. So much for statistics. Now let's have a glimpse of the immersion that we earlier discussed, and exactly our grassroots experience, and then the impact of the pandemic. As a glimpse of the Tboli traditions, I was already explained earlier, the gesture of the host, the cultural leader, and the municipality mayor, and the other tribe members who offered us food and their traditional music and dance is an indication and representation of their hospitality. We gladly took it as a way of welcoming and supporting the academic community. The ladies in their traditional, well-decorated attire performed using the musical instruments, which had their vernacular names, by the way. And here we are in their the way they express themselves, so their way of self-expressions. As we look at their attire, their traditional makeup, and this woman here in the middle, the traditional makeup is of a Tboli woman is composed of red dots, 2 dots on the face, on both sides of the face, and then they wear bracelets, they wear rings made of brass, and they have again their own names for it. And they have the head covering, which is part of the royal suit worn by a princess or a boy, they call. And they also wear earrings that all of these accessories made of beads or brass are by their own designs and their own concepts of what a beautiful woman should wear. And there is actually one particular blouse that caught our attention, because they say this is part of the whole outfit of a princess, and this particular blouse, they're saying, costs 25,000 to 30,000 pesos, and that's equivalent to from $500 to $600 for the blouse alone. So you can just imagine the rest of the outfit actually could cost about 40 to 50,000. Okay, but that is for the princess. So among the highlights of this visit is the hosts sharing with us the experience of their attire. And so we were also dressed like princess or boy, and the men were like prince. So also in relation to that is their self-determination. What does this mean? There is the School of Living Traditions that shows sustainability by continuing learning traditions under the auspices of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, or the NCCA, as earlier mentioned as well, which is to establish schools of indigenous knowledge and traditions. And one of this is the School of Living Traditions, which just recently celebrated its 6th year anniversary. And so in here, this is the school where children and women learn how to weave the tinala cloth, the famous tinala cloth. And that is the focus of this center, to sustain the educating the children on how to make and carry on with the tradition of weaving the tinala. Now, what is the impact of this pandemic? Because after this, we left them and then we received calls from them for help. Number one, there were two projects that were supposed to take off. One is the Gonu Hofu Heritage Center. And in this center is, as you can see, there's a house, it's like a hut on top of the hill. And that is called the Gonu Hofu, which means a house of great height, looked up to by all. And under this project, by the way, is a school for indigenous knowledge and tradition, but this is for the children from kinder-aged children. But this is stalled for the time being because of the pandemic, everyone has to stay at home. Nobody goes out. Only authorized people will go out. And so the construction of the school has stopped. So is the case of the other project, which is the Gono Sebong, or the House of Gathering, which is supposed to rise also at this point, would have been rising already, but it also stopped. It stalled because first, they lack the funds to put up the structure. Now let's proceed to the implications. What are the implications of this? Number one, the activities that were focused on sustaining cultural values and traditions stalled, such is the case of the two centers I mentioned, the Gono Hofures Heritage and the Gono Sebong centers. Number two, activities of socio-economic life came to a halt. Community quarantine and strict health protocols were imposed. Work in the countryside was affected. For instance, the influx of tourists, both local and foreign, were restricted and eventually banned, actually, thus affecting the local economy in terms of consumer spending on local produce that employ artistic skills and talents in design, such as the accessories, the musical instruments, and their attires, which was well patronized, by the way. Now, this is tantamount to no income for the Tboli indigenous peoples. Number three, the means of livelihood to sustain basic needs were impacted. Cash assistance or food supply provided by the local government were not enough. Likewise, the hospitality industry, where cultural workers perform, and hotel accommodations, guided tours, restaurants, recreational activities, because there are 7 falls there. So the zip lines that employ locals and other allied services and businesses are also all affected. And number 4, the pandemic restrictions impeded movement of goods and services, and transport and market distribution were not possible due to enforced border restrictions. Now, how did we, so these are the results that we found. 4 issues emerged. Number 1 is economic. Tourism, being highly a lifeblood of the Tboli economy, has been affected in that the lack of tourists and visitors, local and foreign, has dimmed their chances of earning income from their local products and services. In particular, the women, the dream weavers, the source of income and sustainability of their traditions of weaving, the tinalak, have been stalled. The problem, lack of funds. There are reported unemployment and work stoppage in the farm, and in the canning industry for the fisher folks were affected, and other businesses because of downsizing or even closure of these small businesses. Number 2 is education. Although as if they are slowly going back to normal, under general community quarantine, the basic health protocols are still enforced, and face-to-face classroom learning is still restricted. Besides, not all of the learners are able to access online classes for lack of computer or laptops, cell phone, even internet connections that made it all too difficult to participate in online classes. Number 3 is health. Not all of them have been vaccinated as yet. The Tboli community, however, is practicing the use of herbal medicines as implemented to them by their elders, especially against COVID. And yet, they are bound to follow health protocols at all times. And number 4, other social services that they may need, but which imply restrictions in access and movements or mobility, especially if it requires other agencies that are under restrictions or of higher alert level classification. So in this case, transportation is also a difficulty in traversing from one place to another where border restrictions are imposed, I should say. So what do we propose? There's a 2-pronged approach. One is for the long term. Number 1, we institutionalize an inclusive approach in providing services to the indigenous cultural communities and the underserved indigenous peoples, like the Tboli tribe members rather than othering them, because earlier we observed that the Tbolis were not really given the ample support or supply of help where they need it. And so it's like we are othering them, like they're not really a priority because the epicenter is in Metro Manila. And so the attention of support and all of the assistance is in Metro Manila. And as well, the incidence in Manila was so very high. And that is one reason for that. But in any case, that is not an excuse. We cannot exclude them. Number two, as a member of the academe, learning from what history tells us and the heritage handed down to us, to accompany them in their journey towards a better life is to rally behind them by continuing seeking relentlessly for concrete actions in all facets of social life that they rightfully deserve and must be constitutionally accorded to as a basic right. This entails the openness of concerned agencies in extending service and assistance for striving indigenous cultural communities and indigenous peoples through funding, basic infrastructure for them, to participate in the movement of their products and all other services that are necessary. And number three, all stakeholders within the community, the local governance, national policymakers, prime movers of the local and national economy, to whom the problem is significant, must work together to make goals of accompanying people movement achievable. And for the short term is that to provide the linkages, even liaison if need be, to the concerned government agencies and institutions, which we actually have already begun when we communicated with them. And number two is to extend this campaign for social awareness and collective conscious and responsive actions to other allied mission-oriented organizations. And that includes our institution, the Asian Social Institute. And third, echo the action and shed light to the response of the Museum of San Beda University. And so at this juncture, let me now turn over the presentation to the curator and administrator of the Museum of the San Beda Alabang, Mr. Joseph Renta III. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you again, Vance, for that information. Okay, so, well, we can only do as much to support our the Tboli community financially, emotionally, economically. And so what the museum can do is to design an exhibition, particularly of the famous fabrics woven by the Tboli women. And so what we exhibit that will showcase the unique and exemplary tradition and culture of the Tboli. So it's all, it can all be seen in the tinalak. Okay? So the tinalak are woven dreams. So Tboli women weave them. Okay? And they have their keen eyes and hands working together to transfer the patterns from their dreams, from their memory to the loom. So even before they would weave this fabric, the preparation in itself is already sacred. They have rituals. Okay, they have rituals, and gathering the material from the pineapple and abaca fibers as they dye the herbal extracts. There are rituals. So the entire process is actually so labor intensive. So this is purely human made, okay? Made by human hands. And there's no machine that or even modern technology that assists them in doing this. And it takes a month to weave a meter of this fabric. So I think the Tbolis of the Lake Cebu in South Cotabato are really exemplary in creating this. So known again as dream weavers, is believe that the details were derived from the visions handed down by their ancestors through their dreams. So, and to show you how internationally recognized this material is, this artifact is. I encountered this particular collection from the Museum of Applied Arts and Sciences of New South Wales in Australia. It's a tinalak, comes from the abaca fiber or banana fiber. And it shows that this is already part of a museum collection. Okay, and according to our former minister of culture, Professor Felipe de Leon, it's an outstanding expression of communal creativity because they do not do this on their own. Part of the Filipino culture is actually creating things together with other people. So we do not do things on our own. So we are very communal people, actually. That's part of the integral culture of the Filipinos. So this is a communal activity, and they take pride of this as an amazing diversity and beauty of the textile arts. You know, not only the Tbolis, you can look into other indigenous cultures. We are only presenting one indigenous community here, but as you go to see the different cultures all over the Philippines, they have different kinds of textile arts, and they have a different kind of craftsmanship as well. So it's very diverse, and each can actually be proud of its beauty and aesthetic quality. And well, according to him, and which we agree, it can even match and surpass other weaving traditions in the world. And so that's why maybe they are found in other museums as part of their collections. Okay, so what we're going to do in the museum is actually to present the works that has been handed down by one of the prominent weavers, Lang Dulay. Lang Dulay was actually a well-celebrated weaver, and she was conferred by the President of the Philippines in 1998 as one of the best artisans, indigenous artisans. And so to ensure the authenticity and quality of the art that we are going to exhibit, we will feature the tinalak made by the descendants of Lang Dulay. So as she received the National Living Treasure Award, or the Malilikha ng Bayan, from the National Commission for Culture and the Arts for her contribution in the preservation of their culture and for her fine craftsmanship of the delicate abaca fibers. So her works is actually a manifestation of the preservation for people's identity and history, woven into the tinalak cloth that contributes to the Philippine culture and art. That's why we're saying that they are the true Filipinos, because the way they live, their culture, their language, their arts are still intact ever since. So even before the colonizers came in, they were never the ideas and concepts are still there. Okay, and they're still practicing it. It's still alive. It's very much alive. Unlike in the city, we're in well, it's very diverse. No, we have a diverse culture. Some of our culture are now like Spanish. Even our language are already combined with some Spanish words. Okay, and even the way we live, it is very American in a way. So as you go and witness and experience our the communities, our indigenous communities, you can really see and know that these are the real Filipinos, because they have lived ever since the way they lived even before the colonizers came in. And in terms of intermarriages, they still preserve their own culture among themselves. No? Very few intermarry with someone who is from the city. Okay, and that's why their culture are very much well preserved. Okay, so these are some of the tinalak that are now in the museum. So what we are doing is we ask for individual sponsors to actually buy these tinalaks, no, from the descendants of Lang Dulay. So that is Noemi Dulay. She was the embroidery that she used to accentuate the houses. No, she's the granddaughter, by the way, of Lang Dulay, who inherited the skill and artistry of her grandmother. So in the community, there is a unanimous recognition that indeed she was able to receive the inspiration handed down from their ancestors, particularly from her grandmother, Langdulay, as manifested in her art of weaving. So even our former Minister of Culture recognized that indeed she was able to receive the inspiration coming from her grandmother. So every tinalak here has a story to tell, and which is an integral part of the exhibition narrative. So the actual experience of weaving is actually a notable factor here as well, of educating our Filipino youth about the art of our indigenous people. That's why before the pandemic, part of the program is for Noemi Dulay to be considered as a resident artist of the museum. Because we wanted our students and the public who are going to view the exhibit to actually witness the way she weave the visions, her visions through the fabric. Okay. But unfortunately, the pandemic came. It's very hard to travel. Even there are regional border restrictions still here in the Philippines. So what we do is to bring the tinalak in the city. So that the artistry will still continue. So they keep on weaving and weaving. Now, what's the pandemic impact to them? Because there are no more tourists, like what Vange has shared with us, there are less tourists coming in to visit them and to purchase their craft, their art. And so that's a great impact to them. That's why we are the ones who are actually initiating this to bring their art to the city. Okay, because it's really very hard to transport things right now, especially in the Philippines. So this is how we are going to exhibit it, by the way. So we're going to hang it on the wall. And because, it's very sacred, no tinala cloth actually can be cut. It cannot be cut in half, as it is considered as a sacred Tboli culture. But as part of the exhibition narrative, the tinalak serve as both literature and art. Okay, and the Tboli express everything that they are in this tinalak, their dreams, their belief, their myth, and even their religion. Okay, so they believe that these designs and patterns have been passed down from them by their ancestors through dreams, and that's why they use these fabrics during significant occasions like birth, marriage, and even in death. So even if the country was colonized by Spain and by America, by the US, the indigenous people of the Philippines, even though they're also Christianized, as you see, there's a picture there with an image, with a Catholic image. So most of the Filipinos, of course, are Christians, Catholics. So they still maintain their integrity, the integrity of their culture, by connecting to the divine. No? Hence, it's an integral part of their lives. No? So there's always still an integration between them and the divine essence. Okay, so imagine the designs of the tinalak. So for example, this tinalak that you can see here, it is entitled Hafak Heyonghi, which means wings of the dove. So when I ask Noemi, where does this comes from? So the design comes from her vision, no? About the wings of a dove. So not only from animals like crocodiles, butterflies, even other natural elements such as flowers or even mountains and streams. So as you notice, Lake Cebu is really rich in natural resources. We are so amazed at how beautiful. We are already in the Philippines and we are so amazed on how beautiful their place is. Imagine they have how many? Seven waterfalls? And they are very rich and diverse in natural resources. So it's like you've been to the Garden of Eden in their place. So can you just imagine how many visions they have every day? So they keep on weaving and weaving this tinalak. And so in the museum, we're going to feature more or less 20 of these tinalaks. Okay, so part of the exhibition also is to feature, we hope, the craft and other accessories in the museum that was discussed by Vange. You know that in the museum we have the Tiendecita de Museo. It's a museum shop that retails souvenirs, arts and craft, and other related merchandise. Okay, although in the Philippines there are some entrepreneurs and designers who have been incorporating them in some other accessories, so like bags, even face mask, and gowns, no. So that's part of the sustainability. But of course, we would like to preserve the sacredness of the tinalak. So in the museum, what we are going to do is to present them the way they should be, okay, as a sacred artifact that are used in their everyday life, particularly in their birth, in their significant parts of their life, like weddings, up to their death. Okay, so I think this is it. No, this is what we have research experience, and we would like to present in this exhibition. By the way, the museums are still closed in the Philippines until now. We opened a few months ago, but because of the surge of the virus, the museums are closed again. But we are going to do this on site. We are very determined to do this on site in San Beda Museum. And we're going to come up also of a virtual tour of the exhibit, wherein you can click the tinalak and it will tell you already the narrative of what it is. And it will give you a closer view on the details of the tinalak as well. Okay, so I think we also have some questions.
I guess, Sir Joseph, we can show them the video.
All right. Yeah, we have prepared also a video that is going
Short
to be part of
video.
the exhibition. Yes.
Yeah. So, I as an academic and cultural.
The Philippines is a very diverse country which is rich in culture, arts, and traditions, and the home for different indigenous communities and tribes belonging to various ethno-linguistic groups. The Tboli is one of the ethnic groups situated in Lake Cebu, South Cotabato in Mindanao. The community is ruled by a datu who leads the Tbolis in their social, religious, economic, and political goals. The Tboli is famous because of its sacred cloth called tinalak, a woven backloom textile from tie-dyed krugon or abaca fiber. The weavers are called dream weavers because their design is the product of their dreams. Aside from weaving, they also produce colorful beaded ornaments, brass accessories like bracelets and solid anklets, and embroidered blouses, skirts, pants with pearl and sparkling sequins. The weaving of tinalak takes almost a month to work on 1 meter length of a woven cloth. They use abaca fiber found in their localities. The big challenge now is the transfer of the weaving skills and sometimes the lack of some supplies used in the creation of tinalak. Also, the lack of knowledge among consumers on this type of woven cloth that sometimes they tend not to buy because they think that it is expensive. The Tboli house is made of bamboo and nipa. It is so simple with big windows, and you can only see tables and chairs or benches which are also made of bamboo and rattan. The Tboli dance is derived from the movements of the birds, the swaying of trees, and various species of animals found in their environment. Chante Rosy Sula's dream is to provide education to the Tboli children, so they will not be separated from their inherited culture and tradition. As Filipinos, we believe our culture, traditions, and principles in life are the significant aspects of who we are as Filipinos. Thank you. Mabuhay.
All right, great, great.
Oh, thank
So
you.
yeah. So I hope we were able to encourage some inquiries, comments, and suggestions with regards to this exhibition. And by the way, we would like this to be very experiential, this particular exhibit. So we continue to accompany them. And the part of the exhibition is also a publication of the book that will feature all the collection, the tinalak that we already have in the museum. So actually, after the exhibition in our museum, we hope that one day that once we open up our international borders, we can actually bring this collection also to your respective museums and galleries all over the world. So maybe you can contact us through AMMC one day, because this will already be part of the collection of the museum. So and we have very limited gallery as well. And so we encourage also, that's why we also thank AMC for giving us
Yeah.
this platform and opportunity to showcase this tinalak to the international museum community, so that we can have an exchange also for our cultural treasures among ourselves. Okay, so there are questions, I think, in the chat box. And so maybe Rosani, Vanch, we can answer these questions. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen. So is there anyone? I haven't seen,
So
sorry. Would you
it's
like
the
to
School
read
of Living Traditions offer classes to tourists or outsiders. So with regards to that, with our observation.
I think with scheduled or by appointment, they can actually share their ideas. No, but specifically based on the interview with their leader, I think they would like to have it to their children. No, that's a transfer of skills to the Tboli children.
Yeah, because I think it will take a lot of time for a foreigner or for a tourist to really grasp the craftsmanship. That's why
Yes,
they have a School of
remember,
Living Tradition. Yes.
remember 1 month for 1 meter length of tinalak woven cloth. That is if you're not doing anything. But if you're a foreigner and you go and visit the 7 falls that they have there in Lake Cebu, I think if you want to learn about tinalak weaving, you have to stay there for a month or 2.
Yeah. Yes, Avanch.
Yeah. Am I audible? Okay. When we visited there, actually, the owner of, or the collector, the cultural master of the School of Living Traditions, gave us an orientation, which I suppose they do with every visitor in the place, is to give an orientation of what the School of Living Tradition does and how it helps the women who are to be trained as weavers and the children as well to carry on the traditions, because there are also collections there that were made by the children, which were very pretty, by the way. But in as far as visitors and those really interested, that is the one thing perhaps that will be coordinated with if it's really necessary.
Yes. Okay.
We
So
even had
another.
our own dream weaving 101 lesson there, but we could not patch the materials. We just had to view and listen. Basically, that's what we did. And to appreciate all of the collections that they had from wall to ceiling, as you can see earlier presented.
Yes.
Yeah, but thank you
That's
for the interest.
yeah. We are also interested to learn.
Also
Actually,
interested.
yeah, but like we mentioned, they really consider this artifact as sacred, no, as their connection to the divine being, and so therefore if you're really going to follow their cultural belief, you cannot actually just touch this or can cut it even or convert it or transform it into other commercial objects. No, so that's why in the museum, that is what we would like to promote and advocate. No, the preservation of the sacredness of this artifact, not merely for commercial purposes, but as really as a cultural artifact, no? As a national cultural treasure of the Philippines. Okay,
Yeah.
so we also have some questions here. What is done to promote knowledge, respect, and appreciation of the Tboli community with the young generation? Maybe this is for the young generation of Filipinos and also for the young generation of the world, no? Because of course this is this indigenous artistry is not only to be preserved by the Filipinos but also of the whole cultural community. Okay, so what are
Yeah.
your say on that, Rosani?
Yeah, that's the reason why we're here. No, that's the reason why we are not stopping to work on promoting and doing these things, because we all know how it is to it is really part of us being Filipinos. And I have here one question. I think this is also related, that how does the Tboli view themselves? You keep referring to them as the real Philippine people. How does your society affirm this, and how do prevent blood quantification views by wider society who may not have Tboli? Actually, the Philippines has how many indigenous people communities? I guess over 100.
More than 100.
More than 100, and more than 2 million indigenous people. No? So we can say that they are really, because they have been maintaining and preserving their cultural communities until now. No? So I guess the society and the government is actually helping them to keep, no, and preserve their cultural identities and their colorful cultural arts and traditions.
Yes. Actually, in the Philippines, like what you've said, we have a lot. We are a culturally diverse country. With an estimated 14 to 17 million indigenous peoples or IPs.
Yes, there are
Yes.
many.
Yes.
In,
There are in
Mindanao,
millions.
yeah, in Mindanao,
Mindanao.
I think more than how many? There are a lot, no. But since maybe this is the start, no, of our immersion to the different indigenous people communities in the Philippines, like that.
Yeah. So we have 110 ethno-linguistic groups. And
Yes.
So that's why we have a lot of languages in the Philippines. All right.
There's some questions, Joseph.
Yeah, what life lessons are our takeaway that resonates deeply with our connection with the Tboli that we apply? So what life lessons did you take away? Resilience, yeah. Basically.
And of course, the love for their cultural values. They are so they have been doing so many things. They are not tired of showing that they are capable of maintaining and preserving their ancestors' cultural. We're so diverse in terms of cultural identities, but my takeaway was until now, I still have that feeling that I adore so much, and I am so inspired of the Tboli when it comes to their artistic views and their cultural aspects.
Yes. So maybe something to be proud of also is their indigenous wisdom. So manifested in their values, in their arts. And what's amazing about my takeaway here is how proud they are of their culture. So because in the city, the culture is so diverse. So we do not know whether we are Spaniards or Americans or what, no. But these indigenous communities, they're very, very pure. They know who they are and they're proud of it. That's why basically they are well developed. economically, socially. Okay, it's just that because of this pandemic, they have been very much affected. They're doing well. They're doing
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And it's just that the pandemic really halts a lot of things
Yes.
on the way they usually live, no? And that's why we're doing this effort for them. We're doing this so much effort for them to bring them here in the city, no? So that there will be more appreciation for the general public, as well as to the millennials or to the next generation of Filipino youth who may not
Yes.
be so much aware of their existence.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe
And
this is the start.
and it was really the first time that we went there, knowing some news regarding the place. But we were so fascinated with their awesome culture and tradition.
Yeah, it's a very peaceful place actually
It
in the
was
southern
so,
part of the Philippines. Yeah.
yes, it was very cool. So I'm inviting everyone to visit after the pandemic, and will
Yes.
be what their tour guides, no, or
Yes.
immersion guides to the community, so they will learn also.
And we
And
would be glad to share
yes,
this as well to other museums all over the world. So if you are interested in this kind of culture and in the artistry that is found in the Tinala, it's I think it's very possible for us, no, to bring them to where you are right now. And I believe that even though you are not a Filipino, you can still appreciate, no, you can still appreciate the ingenuity, the wisdom that is found in these artifacts, particularly the tinalak. All right, Tansh, we still have something to share, say?
Yes, thank you very much. The questions, by the way, are from Ms. Michelle Selman Fisher. They're very, very good, nice questions. I think we missed out one where she asked about the Tboli's perspective on the COVID-19 and its impact to the community. Is that it, Ms. Michelle? Let me just try providing an answer to the questions. They're actually very rooted in their tradition of their health practices. And so if believe it or not many of them are infected or even affected by the pandemic. That's what they say. In our community, nobody died because of COVID. But you see, our elders are giving us concoctions, the herbal medicines that accordingly would prevent them from having COVID. So that to me was a very interesting area to explore, because going to the question of life lessons, actually Tboli or urban citizen or whatnot, we're just really one. Okay, we're just really so connected. It just so happens that they were born in a place and we were born where we were born, and so we have different orientations. But you know, there's this the song by John Lennon that says "Imagine." It is accordingly an ode to humanism. But I guess we can sing the same song for all of us all over the world. And that is why we love singing it, because we are able to relate to it. There is oneness in us. It's just that maybe we have different colors of skins, we speak different languages, but the universal language is love and peace. They have that, we have that. Why don't we put it all together? Something like that. That is, I think, the very, very lesson that we can, draw from there.
Yeah.
And
Very
what
well
are we
said.
able to contribute to promote it is actually in the Philippine school curriculum. We are also encouraging teachers, because we are also educators, to include in the curriculum an appreciation or even the knowledge about indigenous culture and indigenous cultural communities. The Tboli experience, by the way, is really a microcosm of the other indigenous cultural communities and other indigenous people throughout the country. And so what we're saying is this, to know them is really to know ourselves as well. So how we do that, how are we able to help that out as educators or people in the academy? I think it was mentioned earlier by Rosani that we intend really to incorporate in the curriculum, to integrate in the curriculum, to teach to the high school, to the elementary, lower level, basic education levels and higher. The idea of integrating into the stories about indigenous people and indigenous life, indigenous society, if you will, so that, you know, we become better at what we know and how we relate with one another. What else?
All right. Okay, so just
did we answer all the
mention,
questions?
there's a question from AMC. Has there been a crossover of the Tboli culture into the mainstream or popular culture and fashion in the Philippines? Well, basically, there are some instances we're in. Well, I think the latest is where our former Miss Universe, Catriona Gray, was able to promote it, the tinalak particularly when she was during her reign, she was wearing it and actually promoting it in her fashion engagements. Okay, but you know, the Tboli community are very much aware of the sacredness of their art. That's why you cannot just showcase it in a fashion show. You need to follow some certain restrictions or follow their traditions as well on how you're going to wear it, how you're going to cut it, how you're going to weave it into a popular or fashionable fabric. Okay, so they're very aware of that. That's why when you purchase this particular tinalak, I know that there is a certification that it has to be certified to be proven authentic, that it really came from South in Lake Cebu in South Cotabato, because there might be some imitations as well. All right, so we're very, very cautious about this as well. No? And it's good that they have a school of living tradition, as well as the protection coming from the government, like the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, to further preserve this. So even though there are some instances that it is already presented in the mainstream, we still maintain the non-commercialization of the artifact. Okay, so it still maintains being its cultural national treasure, okay, in the Philippine perspective or Filipino context. So there's a last question, I think, here. Will the museum consider virtual talks and workshops as a source of income while people are unable to travel? Yes, I think we do so. This is what we're going to do. Definitely. Yes. Thank you so much for that, Eliane. And as a weaver, you're a weaver, I found that there are a lot of wonderful workshops, talks to learn globally while supporting artists and the museums financially. Yeah, like we've said, there's going to be virtual. So definitely part of the exhibition is to virtually showcase, or to virtually show how the weaving is being done, by Noemi Dulay, for example. Okay, so definitely we're going to do this. And I hope this webinar opened a lot of opportunities to the international museum circle, to the international museum organizations on the importance of this cultural treasure of our country. You know, we are very rich in terms of cultural treasure, and I hope that we can share this with the whole world, And this will also gain a lot of wisdom and values to spread all over the world. So I think that's it. So thank you so much, AMC, for giving us this opportunity to present our indigenous culture in the Philippines.
Yes, yes. Yeah. I would like to say last, no?
Yes,
As a cultural and academic institution, I think we have to find ways to impart knowledge, wisdom, and understanding about the indigenous community and the art. No, it's embracing them, totally embracing them and loving them. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
AMC.
to our speakers for sharing their experience and expertise with us. A recording will be available on our website, artcurators.org, and our YouTube channel shortly. Please help support our capacity to continue programs such as today's event by making a donation today. A gift of any amount will have a direct impact on our work. Thank you, stay well, and join us again soon.